Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, music lovers and audiophiles. Today I'll be reviewing the Modhouse Audio Tungsten Planar Magnetic Headphones. I hope you enjoy it. I recently received a review sample of the new Modhouse Audio Tungsten headphones. These are open back, wired headphones. The model I received has push-pull planar magnetic drivers and sells for $19.99 before custom colors and cable upgrades. My review pair had optional red ear cup paint, which I believe had precisely zero impact on sound quality, but it did make me smile every time I used the Tungstens. For this review, I primarily used my reference DCS Lena headphone amp, driven by the Lumen T3 Streamer DAC, which uses ESS 9028 DAC chips. The Tungstens like a powerful amp, and the DCS was more than capable of meeting my needs and preferences for approximately 80 dB average listening levels. Now, I should talk a bit about the driver choice. There is a choice between single-ended or push-pull drivers with the Tungstens. The push-pull driver arrangement that I listen to means that there are magnets on both sides of the planar driver. To review, when you pass current, the music signal in this case, through wires that are glued to the planar diaphragm, the wires will want to move if they're in a magnetic field. This movement of the wires in the diaphragm creates the sound that you hear. A theoretical problem is that the magnetic field gets weaker the farther the wire is from the magnet, and the field gets stronger as the wires get closer. This creates a so-called nonlinearity or a distortion. Planar headphone drivers are pretty large relative to typical dynamic drivers, so this distortion is limited, but it's there. One way to address the distortion is to place magnets on both sides of the driver in a push-pull arrangement. Then when the wire moves away from the magnets on one side, it gets closer to the magnets on the other side, and distortion is reduced. I didn't test the single-ended version, so I can't tell you if it's audibly different, but I would guess it is. The Tungstens weigh just a bit over 1 pound, and I thought they were quite comfortable. Ear pressure is adequate to make them stable when you move your head around, but low enough for long listening sessions. Modhouse emphasizes that ear pads make a big sonic difference, so they ship the push-pull tungsten with ZMF Caldera Ultra Perf pads. They also use a custom Viking weave cable. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Martin, executive publisher of The Absolute Sound and a reviewer here on the TAS YouTube channel. I'd like to invite you to take advantage of a special offer that we have. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter simply by entering your email address either in the form you'll find on screen, or you can click on the link in the show notes below and enter your email address. Twice a week, actually, we will send you audio reviews, written reviews that you won't find here on YouTube, music reviews, and our famous Editor's Choice and Product of the Year awards. This allows you to find the best equipment in audio, as well as read our extensive and authoritative review coverage of hundreds of audio products. We would enjoy having you as subscribers, and now back to the show. All right. Enough technology, let's talk about sound quality because that's really why we're here. This is a very enjoyable headphone that can compete with a variety of top models I've tested. Of course, we'll have more to come. But the models I'm thinking of right now include the Focal Utopia, my references, which are the Hi-Fi Man Sesvaras, and the recently tested Dan Clark Audio E3. Some of your choice from among these and other excellent headphones will be based on price, but some of it could and probably should be based on the exact flavor of sonic tuning each manufacturer imparts. Every headphone has deviations from pure neutrality, and some listeners will prefer some deviations over other deviations. Perish the thought, But some listeners are likely to prefer deviations from neutrality even if pure neutrality were possible, which it isn't at the current state of the art. The Modhouse Tungsten has very flat response, making it especially suitable for listeners whose taste runs across a wide variety of music and who like to hear what is going on in each and every recording. This approach also works well because even on a specific type of music, you'll get different mixing and mastering choices made by different engineers. And if you try to compensate for this with a distortion in the headphones, you'll be wrong an appreciable percentage of the time. So, we like to say flat is good. On average, it gets closest to the absolute sound. When I reviewed the DCA E3 headphones, I said that they had the fewest octave-to-octave frequency imbalances that I had heard thus far. I still think that's true, but the tungsten comes pretty close to the flatness of the E3s, and the tungsten tuning is different in a way that I think many listeners will like. So, let's start with the perceived frequency response of the tungstens. Take a look at this graph. You'll notice that the response is wideband and doesn't deviate too much from flat, given that plus or minus 10 dB with headphones is quite common. One big thing is that the basic slope of the curve is very slightly downward sloping from bass to treble, which makes the overall sound meaty, beady, big, and bouncy without getting unnatural for the most part. I think this tuning would make a lot of people happy with its excellent blend of dynamics and natural-sounding tonality. I would note a similarity to the tuning of the Focal Utopia, though I would say that the tungsten's deviations from neutrality are a bit lower than with the Utopia. There are a few areas where the tungsten does modify the sound of instruments and voices a bit when compared to the absolute sound. On occasion, bass instruments on the tungsten sound slightly too resonant, though for the most part, their bass is quite good. You can hear this, for example, on the bass drum whack that I often use from Alison Krauss's song Maybe on the album Forget About It. On some voices, especially female vocals, the singer can sound slightly moved back in the mix and occasionally have just a touch of a hooded sound. You can hear this subtle shaping on Gillian Welch's album Time, the Revelator. And in the upper mid-range, or the lower treble, there's sometimes a sparkle or a tiz on certain instruments when listening on the tungstens that you wouldn't hear in a live setting. An example here is Dua Lipa's album Radical Optimism. I want to emphasize that these are small deviations. Every headphone has some of these, and honestly, the tungsten is less deviant than most. Again, the Dan Clark E3 provides an instructive comparison. The E3 has very few dips and peaks as you go from bass to treble. This octave-to-octave smoothness means that individual instruments and voices sound quite realistic. At the same time, the upper octaves are slightly stronger than the lower mid-range. That's a difference of maybe 4 to 5 octaves, not the octave-to-octave balance I've been talking about. So that the whole balance of the band or orchestra is slightly light at times with the E3s. If you compare this to the Modhouse Tungsten, you'll find a touch more bumping and dipping octave-to-octave with the tungsten, so instruments aren't quite as realistic or transparent sounding, but the overall balance seems right a little more often. I think both headphones are sonically well engineered, but like a Porsche and a Ferrari, there could be legitimate arguments about which one is a better buy. The tungstens are open back headphones, and some listeners find that the spatial quality of open back headphones is superior. This has to be put in the context of the limited head-related transfer function nature of all headphones, so they're never going to sound like speakers or the real thing. But open back headphones will typically be better at getting the image somewhat out of your head if that's a bother for you. And of course, open back headphones are not ideal for noisy environments. But really, we should just say that noisy environments are not ideal for careful music listening. Used at home or in many offices, the tungsten will work well without imposing the horrible sonic handicaps of Bluetooth, which comes along for the ride with many active noise-canceling headphones. Of course, you've got to do what you've got to do for your environment. As I hope you can tell, I found the Tungsten Push-Pull headphones to be excellent performers when judged based on accuracy and comfort. They represent very good value as well, although you do need a solid amp, and those are not free. And yes, I know $2,000 is expensive for many people, but in all honesty, everything I've heard under $1,000 is dramatically more compromised. So my summary, the Modhouse Tungsten is a winner. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, please sign up for our free weekly newsletters, and we hope to see you back again soon. Thanks for watching.